Chesil and Westfield are two iconic brands within the UK kit car industry. They punch well above their weight, meaning they've been accepted by the motoring mainstream. Westfield has been reviewed by such magazines as Evo and Autocar, and the Chesil Speedster 356 replica has been fully embraced by the classic car world. When these two brands were nearly lost last year when they went into receivership, it was feared they were never going to be seen again. But they were brought out of receivership by a brand new company called Westfield-Chesil, and today we're going to learn what they're going to be doing with those two brands. Oh, and before I forget, GTM owners, we're going to ask about that as well. I'm Trevor, and this is a brand new special video for the 7spot YouTube channel. Come and join me. Hi everyone, welcome to another great 7spot video. Today we're really excited because we're at the brand new Westfield-Chesil premises in the centre of England. And I'm really pleased to say alongside me I've got Simeon Cattle, who is one of the partners in this new business venture. Simeon, thanks very much for inviting us in, it's really appreciated.
Thanks for coming.
First question, how did this all come about?
So it really came about through Nigel Trilk, who's the owner of the business, and he's had a long-term love of classics and kit cars and British cars in particular, and he's been a customer of mine at my other business, Project Shop, for a number of years, and he came in and said, I'm thinking of doing something slightly silly. And I said, oh, what's that? He said, well, I might have found a British sports car company that needs rescuing. And I think I might want to buy it. So we had a conversation that went along the lines of, well, lots of really rich guys have become less rich by buying British sports car companies. So how are we going to do this differently? And that was sort of mid of last year, and we kept talking about it. And he progressed things with the administrators, and eventually a deal was struck last year to buy the assets for both Westfield and Chesil.
So, what did you actually buy from the receivers? What items did you actually get?
Yeah, so essentially you get, or we got rather, the IP, so the actual technology behind building the cars, and all the design work and that sort of thing. We bought what was physically left over at the Kings Winford business, which was a collection of parts, pre-production stuff, various tooling and what have you, jigs, molds, all of that sort of thing. But really, we've bought the brands and the ability to therefore remanufacture the cars.
So you've moved the business from Kings Winford to here in Bicester. Yeah. What was the background to that decision?
Well, initially, when we started talking, you know, the one thing that you do want to be able to do is put a business back on its feet as quickly as you possibly can, because the longer it's in limbo, the more problems you've got getting it all started again. But there were a number of problems with that. The site in Kings Winford was just too big for the restarted business. The overhead would have been too high. The landlords weren't particularly keen on having Westfield in the building any longer. The administration process had sort of dragged on quite a long time, so a lot of the key staff had moved on and found other jobs. And we realised that what we were going to have to do was move out of that site anyway. So it's a question then of, did we move 3 miles or did we move 100 miles? And really what we were looking at was quickly being able to restaff a business. And given that I had Project Shop here and we'd been talking about doing the factory builds here in Bicester anyway, we just felt that we needed to make a decision. There was a unit that worked for us, and we could be in short order. And so the decision was made to move down to Bicester and really have a fresh start for both Westfield and Chesil.
So with Project Shop, that was, or it still is obviously your business. Tell us a little bit more about that. What sort of scale and involvement does that have?
Okay, so traditionally, we started out as a restoration business, but we're in Bicester, and in 2012, a company bought the local airfield here and set up a centre of excellence for classic cars, and it became really quickly aware to me that there was nobody who provided a good everyday garage service for the cars that were coming into Bicester. So we changed our outlook, I suppose, from being a company that took a wreck and made it into a beautiful car, to a company that dealt with servicing, maintenance, upgrades, and got people's cars so that they could drive them reliably. So that's what the business is centred around. But we've also always had a small restoration shop alongside that. And really, that's where the team that I built to do these restorations, they're coming over to work for Chesil primarily, because they're a very different car to build than a 7 type car. They need more trim, the tolerances are tighter. It's just a more complex car to build. So we'll be doing the factory builds for the Chesil there over at Project Shop. The other half of it will continue to do what it does best, which is keep all the hundreds of classic cars that are around Bicester running. But we'll have that expertise in both areas.
You mentioned the Centre of Excellence there. Are you referring to Bicester Heritage just down the road? Because not only is there that just close by, we're in the middle of Motorsport Valley, of course, with all Formula One teams and motorsports for very sort of close by. Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons Chesil and Westfield worked so well in Birmingham, was that there were lots of supporting engineering businesses. And if we'd tried to move it somewhere else in the country, I think a lot of that would have been lost. But there are lots of great local engineering companies. We will continue to use, quite a lot of the original suppliers, but there are lots of local engineering companies that can help us prototype parts and make things in short order, so that we can test them in the cars as we develop them. So there seems to be a very good fit here, that you've got the resources at Project Shop to build cars, and over here you're going to be actually sort of developing and storing the parts and so on. So there seems to be quite a good natural fit between the two. Yeah, and also we're quite a young company, and I think there definitely were members of staff that had reached their sort of natural progression at Project Shop, and this is great because it gives them a new place to thrive. So Ewan Jones has come across, who's ran our parts department, and he's going to look after the parts department here at Westfield. And Billy Earwicker, who is just a fantastic natural engineer, and he has done a lot of work with integrating electric drivetrains into classic cars. So he's heading up our R&D team here as well, and he'll work on both ICE and EV platforms for the future. So have you brought across any of the original staff from Westfield to join you here? So obviously there's the time and space issue. Broadly, they've all got lives up in Kings Winford, so that did make it difficult. We haven't taken on any of the major staff, but what we have done is created a job for a guy called Jason Ball, who'll be well known to people who've had Westfields before. He and his father have helped with the transition between the two businesses. Chris, his dad, used to head up the purchasing team, and he's been helping Ewan. And Jason's going to look after our relationship with the Westfield Sports Car Club and all the various forums online, of course, which
you're one of. And he's also going to be our sort of technical and parts liaison. The great thing about the modern world is he can do that from home for the majority of time, come down to the factory when we need some support here.
So we're a few months in after you've taken on the business. Can I now put my hand in my pocket, and people at home that know me well will know this is a rare occasion, pull my credit card out and say, can I have a kit?
Not quite yet. So one of the big problems with taking over a company that has gone through an administration process is that one day, a year ago, everything stopped. And actually, what really happened is that things started to slow down probably 6 to 12 months before that. So Westfield weren't buying or ordering components in the quantities that they were for a period of time. Various manufacturers either stopped making the bits or weren't getting paid in time, or whatever the situation might have been. So when we took over the business, there literally wasn't enough parts to build a car. So there are two processes. One is that you've got to go back to all of those people and say, you used to make this, would you like to make it for us again? And by and large, we've had a really great response from that. But the other thing is that as a new business, we've got to look at how the bits get from us out to other people. So that means having a proper system in place. And I think one of the things that was slightly lacking in the previous business, or could be improved on, was that everything was very manual. They had an awful lot of very good, very talented staff with a lot of knowledge going back. To a certain extent, we've lost a little bit of that. But there weren't any real systems put in place. So what we've spent the last few months doing is installing a proper ERP system, which is a computer program that looks at all your stock. You can see, what you're going to need. For example, if we're building a kit and you buy a part off the website, that it's already Mr. Blogg's kit's part. It's not.
Yeah, I see.
It might be in stock, but it's not available, because what we don't want to do is go out, pick that part, send it off to Mr. Blogg's, and your kit's then short of a bit. So we've been putting all of that in place in the background. And it's not quite ready, is the reality of it, but it's only a few weeks away. So if people can bear with us just a little bit longer, if we have the system and it works from day one, which I'm pretty confident of, we're less likely to upset or let down, our customers, and ultimately that's really important, because we're a new face and we want to build trust immediately, not disappoint everybody.
Okay. One of the points I've seen on the forums is questions about the missing models. One of being the XTR 2 and 4.
Yeah.
And of course, the other one is GTM, which is a one that regularly bubbles up. What's the situation with those cars?
I think the first thing to say is that you can, if we try and bite or swallow everything right now, Chesil, ICE, EV, the Sport, the XTRs, GTM, there's just too much to do.
A bit of indigestion.
We'll get indigestion. It'll fail. It'll be a mess. So what we need to do is concentrate on what's readily available to us. In terms of the XTR range, Westfield, although they had them advertised and sort of available, they haven't made them in years in any particular number. So for us to put that back into production is a massive job. Same with the GTMs. It was sort of a stillborn project. They put a lot of effort into it, mid 2000 and I don't know, 12 to 16 sort of era, but they haven't really done anything with it in the last 5 years. So the game's not up for either of them. But the XTR definitely has been well overtaken by other products out there and would need a massive rejig to be a marketable product. The GTM, it's really difficult to see how much we've got left of it, and whether or not it's something we can breathe some life back into. At the moment, they're going to have to wait because there's stuff to do with Westfield and with Chesil, and we know we've got a massive pent up demand for those two things.
Okay. So immediately going forward, what are the headline targets you've got timeline wise of producing kits and sort of part supply? Just the rough sort of headline points.
I think it's really important to say that the most important, or the building block that the whole business has to be built around, is parts, because we can't build kits without cars. We can't without parts, and we can't build cars without parts. So that's been our first real push. And we should have the parts department up and running by the end of March, very early April at the absolute outside. With that, and with all the forward orders in place, we can then start to build cars. So there is some used stock that was left over from the administration process. There are some part-built Chesils, which Project Shop are currently finishing off, and they'll be available fairly early. So we're probably, used stock now, some very early hybrid cars, if you like, will be available within the next 6 weeks. In terms of being able to buy a kit or being able to place an order for a car, we'll be ready again by the end of the month, and then production really properly starting probably and fulfilling customer orders in June.
Okay. I suppose one thing that's jumped to mind is what would be your message out there to the Westfield and Chesil sort of customers and enthusiasts? Hopefully you've got a great audience here,
Yes,
with everybody watching. What at the moment, what is your message to get across to those people?
I know there's quite a lot of frustration out there because people want to buy and support the brand straight away. I think the thing to say is that we're absolutely overwhelmed by all the good wishes, all the really positive help that we've had for the club. And actually, it's worth pointing out, especially the Westfield 11 group, who've been really, really helpful with that product. So, thank you very much. We really genuinely mean that. That's been a great help. And just bear with us for just a little while longer while we put the building blocks of the business together, just so that we don't overstretch ourselves and we don't disappoint you.
So this is the heart of the new operation, I guess.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So right now we're sat in what's going to be our R&D area. Obviously, at the moment, it's really Chesil heavy because that part of the engineering project, or that engineering project, was close to being finalised when we bought the business. But when this is finished and we move that to production, the guys here will be getting on with the new version of the Westfields.
Okay. And what's through that way?
Through there is the facilities.
Okay. And then going further back, I can obviously see quite a lot of parts.
Yes.
Presumably that's your parts department.
Yeah, so the total site's about 8,500 square foot. Around about half of that's given over to parts, and the other half goods inwards, engineering, and a little machine shop. So it's a good size. Obviously, Kings Winford was huge. It was about 30,000 square foot. Originally, they built a lot more in-house, or did a lot more in-house, and then of course they had all the other projects going on, and they're parts of the business we didn't buy.
So moving down towards parts, what did you inherit from the sort of liquidators?
Well, what we inherited was not enough parts to build a car. So there were lots of components. A lot of them were sort of pre-production-y bits and pieces, and heritage parts from a long time ago. But there wasn't an awful lot to do the sort of current range of cars, if you like. So I think, it's always difficult to know what happened with a business before. But obviously as cash got tighter, they ordered less and less stock. So what we're having to do now is not only, put all of the bits and pieces back into a new environment, but pick up all of those contracts, all of those different manufacturing firms, buy components from them if they have them in stock. But the bigger problem really is those that aren't held in stock, those that were either manufactured as a bespoke item, or those that are used off different vehicles, like the Mazda Diff that runs in both the EV Chesil and in the whole Westfield range. They've got an order time from Japan of around about 26 weeks, so 6 months.
Wow. Okay. That's
yeah. So if you can imagine, there weren't any diffs when we bought the business. So one of the first things we had to do was work out what we did and didn't have, what the lead times were like, and then start committing cash to them, because there's a startup business and a startup business that's bought a liquidated company. There are not a lot of people that want to give you a credit line. So, a lot of what we've shelled out up till now, we haven't even seen yet, because it's all in manufacturing at the moment. So there's been a huge amount of cash invested up front in parts and components for the cars.
And how have those suppliers been? Because obviously some of them may well have been burnt in the past. How have they been when you've come along and said, hey, we're the new guys, can you supply me?
Yeah, well, I'm really glad to say there's been a really positive uptake of that. I think everybody realises that you can't do anything about the past. And, companies go into liquidation all the time. It's not necessarily, it's never a great thing, but if you're in business, you know that customers come and they go. What really is a problem though for a lot of these firms, they're quite small manufacturing firms just like us, and they lost a very big client. So it wasn't necessarily the chunk of money they lost when they didn't get paid for whatever components they had. They, in a lot of cases, they were able to go and take those back off the shelf because they still had retention of title. But then they had nowhere to sell them, so they were useless to them anyway. And also they didn't have the orders coming through that they were dependent on. So when a business goes into liquidation, it's a real problem. I would say that 99% of the companies have been really happy to come back and supply us again. Some we've had to reorganize things. So, for example, the people that laser cut out all of the plyboard that goes into making up things like door cards and dash fronts and that sort of thing, particularly in the Chesil, but also on the very basic dash on the Westfield. We were their last customer. That they cut things out of plyboard for. Most of them they cut aluminium sheet. So for the panelling, both on the underside of the Chesil and on the chassis of the Westfield. So they're continuing to do that for us, but we've resourced somebody to do the plyboard.
So I can see we've got some lovely shiny cars coming together there. How important are the little bits and pieces to you, though, on the part side of it?
They're more important, to be perfectly honest. there's two businesses here. There's building cars, and there's supplying parts to owners. So all the historic bits and pieces that you need to keep your, 1996 or 2012 Sport on the road. We've got to stock all of those, make them so that we can support the heritage of the brand, if you like. But also, without every single component, you can't build a car. So with the Chesil at the moment, that's our sort of main focus. And the anti-burst locks on the side of the on the doors, they're on a 14-week lead at the moment. So we're not going to see those for another 4 or 6 weeks at this stage when we're taking the videos, and we only had a finite amount of them. So that's one of the first components that's used, because without the anti-burst latch in place on the car, we can't actually build a body. So we can make the panel work, but we can't put the body together, because they form part of gapping the whole body. So it's really, really important on 2 levels. One is that you don't want to promise a customer that you've got a part and then not deliver. You don't want to promise a customer they can have a part in a week and then deliver it in 12. And if you want to build cars so that your customers get them when you say they're going to get them, or when you promise them, then you've got to have all of those hundreds of components ready on the shelf in sufficient volume to build. So when you're restarting production, generally you've got a 9-month lead into getting all of that sorted. We're trying to do it in 5. So it's, there are some things we can't supply, or we've had to source elsewhere, but on the whole, it's beginning to come together.
So where are you at as of today? We're here sort of towards the end of March 2023. Say I've got a Westfield STV and I've just knocked the front corner off it. Can I sort of whip my credit card out and you can sort me out?
Not quite, but we're really not far off it. So hopefully first week in April, all the system that goes behind this parts department will be up and running. So we've one of the things that we've done when we bought the business was try and sort of put processes in place that perhaps weren't there before. So we've got a complete ERP system, which is a computer program that basically tells you what you have in stock, what the manufacturers of those parts have in, how long it would take them to make it, how many you've got to order, because you can't just order one of something, you're going to order 50 or 100 or 200, and what those sort of lead times are. And that will allow us to make more cast iron promises, and it'll also automate all the back end. So we don't need lots of people with spreadsheets getting things hopefully right, but usually wrong. It'll be an automated process. So you'll be able to order your part, and if it says it's here at the factory, you're going to get it in a day or 2, or if it's being made, it might be 6 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever the lead time might be, but again, you're going to know you're going to get it. And I think just in the same way that people's attitude to cars has changed, with Amazon, people's attitude to being able to buy components or buy things has changed. You want to be able to decide that you're going to put an upgraded set of headlights on your Westfield at the weekend, trawl through our website on the Tuesday, get it past your wife, girlfriend, partner on the Wednesday, buy them, and then have them for the weekend to fit. So that's how we want it to be.
So quick summary on that then, really. It's just a little bit of patience from everybody, and you're going to be up and running really shortly and keen to supply all these parts.
Absolutely.
Well, that's brought us up to speed with what Westfield-Chesil's plans are in the immediate future. and also what they're doing to engineer these cars better. We've also learned what they're going to do with the parts side of it. So that gives us real confidence what they're going to do. This has been a 7-spot video, and we hope you've enjoyed it. And we hope you're going to click that subscribe button, because we've got part 2 coming up soon, where we're going to learn about the cars they've got coming up in production very soon.